Greater Good Radio. Connect, learn, heal, and grow.
Hawaii was probably the most literate society on the planet in the mid-1800s. And there's so much Hawaiian language material available. There were like over 100 newspapers in Hawaiian. And that material is now being accessed. Some of it's being translated, some of it's being accessed and used as a resource, in Hawaiian without being translated by Hawaiian speakers. So that's stuff UH can help with to restore pride and understanding and knowledge of both cultural practices, but environmental practices. And I'll get back in a little more detail on the question you asked, but things like sustainability practices. When you think about different people have different estimates of how many Hawaiians lived here pre-contact, but let's just pick a number like 800,000. Maybe 1 million, maybe 600,000. That's a lot of people to live here completely sustainably with no external contact or reliance on resources. I mean, we only have about 1.4 million here today. And what do we have? 10-day food supply, something like that. We're running out of water in lots of places. So they knew how to live in harmony with this place better than we do today. And, I love to see that work, bringing it back, all over the islands that's going on. Fishponds, ahupua restoration, things like that. So now UH's role, we can help in all of those things because we're not going to go back to how it was. But when we integrate those practices with, some of what we do know today through, I'll just call it Western science, because that was science. What they were doing was science. They were trying things, observing what worked, and then, baking those things that worked into practices that they followed. We have many of the people who are figuring that stuff out. And a lot of them are Hawaiians. They're not all Hawaiian by blood. They're not necessarily Kanaka Maoli, but they have respect for those practices and they are integrating them. That's UH kind of work. What I think UH probably cannot do, and it saddens me because in part, TMT, really scarred us among many Hawaiians, but we can be part of the more community healing. There's a really interesting project. Dwayne Kurisu is kind of behind it. I think it's called Restoring Hawaii's Soul, something like this. And actually, Randy Moore, my former board chair, when we were talking about this, he referred me to a book by a guy named Adam Kahane, and he was involved in helping in South Africa figure out how do you bring together, at the end of apartheid, Black and white South Africans. And what does that look like to create a society that's going to be, I don't know how integrated they really ended up or even are today, but he was helping communities solve those kinds of problems. And I mentioned this to Dwayne. We were talking about it one day, and he actually brought this guy in, and they started a series of workshops, and he brings together really disparate people from the Hawaiian community, the business community, all kinds of people to really talk about how will we heal this rupture that, people who are paying attention know it's here, and that it's going to be very hard for Hawaii to thrive if we don't figure out how to have a healthy Hawaii and healthy Hawaiians.
If you resonate with Greater Good Radio, please join our community at www.greatergoodradio.com, where you can get access to exclusive content and offerings. Hope to see you soon.